But one of the things that they had in this game was that you could buy a house in different places. The land, well, you've got somewhere free to rest, okay, and you've got another place to store your stuff, okay. Well, other than that, it's a bit more of a time grab because you've got to put the time in to get the money to buy them, I suppose. Oh, that's why they're there. Yeah, pretty much. Other than that, they really don't serve much of a purpose. I mean, you don't have to spend gold staying at an inn. Yeah. Yeah, whoopee-doo. Well, you can make campfires and you can rest at campfires, but you've got to clear out the enemies and that. Okay. Okay. Well, cool, I guess. But then it wears thin. And in this version, like I say, you can't always rest, which is a real pain in the backside. Oh, but you know, got to continue your journey. Not very practical. I mentioned that before, being down that road. Do you know what? I just hate this game. I'm going to delete it. So yeah, Dragon's Dogma 2. I can't recommend this game to anybody. I can't. There's even if you think, oh, I could do with an oldie style high fantasy action game. It's boring. It's dull. It's dull and it's boring. The enemy fights are too much and too repetitive. The combat is not deep enough to be interesting at all. It's like they wanted. It's like they wanted to just take all the fun and just suck it completely out of the game and get rid of it. Bravo, you did. Bravo. Bravo. That went well. It's and the performance issues on this game and the frame rate. It's a PlayStation 5, you wouldn't know it. You really, really wouldn't. It's piss poor. It really is. It's just embarrassing. I just Capcom, why? Why Capcom? I remember your games like Beautiful Joe and Beautiful Joe 2. I remember, you know, Resident Evil Remake on the GameCube. I remember the first Devil May Cry. I remember you used to be good. I remember you used to be good. Where are you going? What are you doing? You know, Dragon's Dogma was brilliant. You know? Brilliant. And look at what you've done to it. You shat it out. Oh, well done. You got a game out. If you can call it that. Like I say, the DLC, it's going to have to... You'll have to rewrite the game to make it good. It's just that I can't. It's getting deleted off my hard drive, right? I don't think I've mentioned everything in this game. Oh, what else is there? Dragon fights. The dragon fights in the first game when you climbed on them and they used to take off and you'd be clinging to their tail and you know, you'd run out of stamina and you'd have to get a pawn to try and catch you and all that. And the way that the dragon fights were, in this game, they're nowhere near as good as in the first game. Right, they're just not. In the first game, they were excellent. And then you got your different versions of dragons. You got your post, you know, killing the main dragon when the game goes into the really dark skies and the Everfall opens up and you get, you know, a few different versions of the dragons and they're a bit more difficult, the drakes and stuff, when you're wandering around, and the wyverns and the worms. And then you get to the bitter black and the even more variations of the dragons, and you get cursed dragons and stuff. All of those versions of dragon fights, you know, when you were at the levels where where they gave you a proper fight, were more noteworthy in terms of awe factor as a player than any of these are right now. The climbing on them and all that in the first game just was so much better than this. I don't know what they've done to the dragon fights in this game, but it's like everything else that they made so dull and boring. They made them a lot worse. A lot worse. And like I said before, if you've got a sequel, right, it's supposed to be an improvement. I genuinely cannot find anything in Dragon's Dogma 2 that is a proper improvement structurally or actual gameplay wise, mechanically, or how things feel in atmosphere of there's nothing that's better, right? Not for me. The first game pisses all over this. If you haven't got it by now, I really don't like this, and I wish Capcom hadn't have bothered. I think Dragon's Dogma 2 is absolutely utter shit, and I'm really disappointed. It's one of the most disappointing games I've ever had the misfortune of playing. I was so looking forward to if Capcom bothered, and now I really wish that they didn't. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I loved the first game. I loved the Dark Arisen as well. But this, why Capcom? Character building or building stats for classes and vocations was completely different in the first game to how it works in this one. In the first game, I showed the stat planner that I use, and in the first game, if you want to build your pawn or your Arisen to be the end goal or level cap, to be a specific vocation, like you want to build a specific mystic knight or a specific assassin or a specific fighter or whatever it is that you want to do, right? There are strengths and weaknesses in stats that will assist or hinder each vocation, so it's quite important to go into a stat planner and plan out what stats you want to meet for your defense, your magic defense, your attack and your magic attack, your HP and your stamina. And then, as if you got experience like me and my daughter in the first Dragon's Dogma game, you'll understand what type of clothing each class wears and what stats that's going to buff in the end once you go forge your gear, etc, etc. So you can, in your head, you can plan out your character in creation and personality and everything else and go into the stat planner and really fine-tune your vision for your pawn and your Arisen. In this game, there is no intricacies in stat building. I see it like they wanted it to be more approachable to a wider audience, to not be as, it's like unforgiving. For example, in the first game, if you have your pawn as a fighter from start to finish, your pawn's going to end up with not a lot of stamina. Now, as a fighter, stamina is a really, really important statistic because your stamina is dependent on how long your pawn can block, right, with a shield, and that's going to be really important in a close combat physical situation. So if you start with a fighter and go through all 200 levels as a fighter, you won't have the stamina to actually fulfill your fighter build properly, right? If you do that for your Arisen, you'll find yourself in a similar predicament. You just won't have the stamina, or the move, the Dragon's Maw move will take up a lot of stamina. So you would really need to understand what you wanted to make a proper fighter, because it has to have the stamina to block, which would take away from the HP, so you're going to have to balance out the HP and the stamina in such a way, and the strength, and decide if you want to use a magic sword, because if you're gonna do that, you're gonna have to put a bit of magic in your build. But in this game, you don't have to put any thought to stat planning at all, because the stats work in such a way that it doesn't really seem to matter what vocation you are as to what levels, what increases you get on specific stats at any time. Now, either that's a good thing or it's not a good thing. To people who don't take pleasure in the intricacies of really building a character, then I suppose that'd be a good thing. If you just want a McDonald's, if you just want a generic fast food type game, then that'll fit your bill. But I don't. I actually really enjoyed and really loved building and planning out a character. I actually liked, taking care of what levels I reached and when to change and everything else, because that was all part of all of the multiple versions of Dragon's Dogma that I had on each system, and all of the different profiles and all of the different characters that I planned out and researched names and went into great depth of, their personalities and how they'd look and crafting them. It was all part and parcel of that. It was all part of my individual stamp, my creation, and so too my daughter's creation with her characters and stuff. And in this one, it's just so generic in how the stats work, and it's like it's another one of those things where I look at it and I say they've taken the fun out of it. And either you will appreciate the generic blandness of it, and I don't understand that, but some people will, or you won't, and I don't. So stat building. It's not looking great for Dragon's Dogma 2, is it? Not from the way that I look at it.